How's it going, guys? Welcome back to part 3 of my Red Sea scuba diving trip. Today we've got sharks, we've got turtles and we've got dolphins. It's a really cool episode with lots of amazing dives. Enjoy the video. My name's Adam and welcome to Nature's Go. We start this video on the boat as we head out with dozens of other dive boats, and we were greeted by this absolutely huge pod of dolphins. I've never seen a pod this big. There was probably 2 or 3 dozen dolphins. It was absolutely huge. There was babies splashing around the water. It was absolutely incredible. This was a pod of bottlenose dolphins. They were really friendly and really enjoyed riding the bow of the boat. It was pretty incredible to see so many. After a few minutes of enjoying the dolphins, it was time to hit our first dive site, Ras Ghozlani. A pretty deep dive to start the day, opportunity to go down to around 28 metres. It's a really sandy dive, this one. There is a wall where you can see loads of corals, but if you head out a little bit, there's just sort of sand with little bits of coral. We were told to look out to the blue for this one for anything big passing by. Kicking off the dive was this fairly big colony of glassfish. You usually find these around like huge sticky out bits of coral. They're really weird when you watch them. They sort of move as one and they're nearly transparent. Very odd fish. It wouldn't be a Red Sea scuba diving video without at least one moray eel. This giant moray was the first we saw of the day, and it sort of watched us as we went around the bit of coral it was hiding under. I wonder if you can spot it. There's a huge fish on screen now, but it sort of blends in with the coral. As we zoom in, it should become more clear. This is a crocodile fish. They blend in so well. They're pretty much the exact same camouflage as the coral around it. I imagine we swam past hundreds of these and didn't see them. There was lots of life on this dive, loads of little fish and even bigger fish around the corals. It was really nice to see. Pretty much everywhere you looked there was a different species of fish, a different colour. It's pretty incredible. A lot of the coral on this dive was unfortunately bleached, but the formations of it were incredibly impressive. There were lots of huge bits of coral sticking out. Sometimes they were flat like table corals, and sometimes they were sticking out like huge fan corals. This meant that it attracted a lot of fish, and you could see the really small antheas pretty much everywhere you looked. This huge yellow salad coral really stood out. You can see surrounding it that pretty much all of the coral is white and bleached, which effectively means it's probably dead. But this one was bright yellow and stood out amongst everything else. It was really pretty. And that was it from Ras Ghozlani, and dive number 1 of the day was complete. It wasn't a particularly impressive dive in terms of the life we saw. We didn't really see any big hitters. The moray eel and the crocodile fish were cool, but it was nice to see the coral and lots of the little fish swimming around it. We then had a small surface interval before we did one of the most famous dives in the Red Sea on Shark and Yolanda Reef. Shark and Yolanda are the 2 small islands that stick out of the water close to this dive, and then the reefs surround the islands. There's a few different ways to go about it. It tends to be a drift dive where you jump in, the current takes you and the boat picks you back up. But you can go behind the islands, in front of them, or do it in a figure of 8. It really depends how the current is on that day. The reason this reef is so famous is because there's a shipwreck called the Yolanda that wrecked there many years ago, and it was carrying a load of toilets and other sort of sinks and bathroom items, and you can see them scattered throughout the end of the dive, which I'll show you later on, but it's very cool and a little bit weird to see so many toilets underneath the water. Right at the very start of the dive we saw this green sea turtle. We basically jumped in on the poor thing. It was just minding its own business, and then about 8 divers joined it in the water. As I saw it, it was swimming away off into the blue, probably around 20 to 30 metres away, but it's probably the best way you can start a dive. The first thing I noticed on this dive compared to our previous one was how much more colour was in the corals. There was a lot more yellows, reds and purples springing out at you. It seems that the coral here is a lot healthier. This was a prime example of that. Those beautiful purple corals really stood out amongst the sort of white and grey of the sand, And then there was also these bright yellow corals as well, just scattered everywhere. It was a really stunning dive for the corals. I was looking around and I looked up and I noticed another sea turtle. I couldn't believe it, it was the one I spotted. Usually the dive guide spots them. We managed to get a little bit closer and it swam off into a cave. Another dive group from a different company noticed we'd spotted something and decided to rush over, so it got a bit crowded and we moved away. Moving on now to the wreck of the Yolanda, and you can still see parts of it scattered around. The main bit of the ship fell a good 700 metres down off into the deep blue. As you can see here, this was some of the cargo it was carrying, which are the absolutely crazy amount of toilets which are still there. You can see sinks, you can see baths, it's absolutely insane to see underwater. It's good to see the fish are utilising them as well. And that was it, we pretty much ended our dive on the wreck of the Yolanda. We had another brief surface interval as we started to head back to shore, and then we finished the day's diving with our final dive on Ras Katy. This was a really simple, really shallow dive. You're only really going to around 15 metres maximum on this one, and it's pretty much a circle in almost a figure of 8 shape all the way around. The reason we came here was because there is a resident white tip reef shark that lives here. It was a gamble, the dive guide said most of the time you don't see it, however it was our lucky day. Lots of beautiful corals to start the dive, and then we pretty much saw the white tip reef shark straight away. It was really, really distant. It was about 50 metres away. This was the footage I got of it, and I promise it's there. I'll zoom in. You can see it now. It just moves away on the centre of the screen. I'll slow it down in the hope that you can just see the shadow of it move. It's evidence that I did see it, although it's not the best footage. This dive site was a triggerfish breeding and nursing ground, so everywhere you looked there was absolutely hundreds of triggerfish. They'd let you get close, whereas if you saw them on their own on a reef, they wouldn't usually. I'm guessing just because they were probably absolutely everywhere, they felt a bit more safe. And would you believe it, we saw another green sea turtle. This was the 3rd turtle of the day and the 4th so far on the trip. 3 turtles in a day I'd say is pretty good going. This one saw us and instantly started swimming away. We didn't bother chasing it or anything like that. We just watched it swim away from a safe distance. On both of my trips to Egypt, this was the only pufferfish of this species I saw. I think this is a blue spotted pufferfish. It's got like almost electric blue spots like the blue spotted ray. It was really odd to see, I'd never seen anything like it. And that was it, a fairly short dive to end on, but overall a successful day's diving. So much to see. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave us a like, it really helps us out. Comment down below, have you been scuba diving in Egypt? What was the coolest thing you saw there? Let me know in the comments section, and subscribe to Naturescope to not miss a future video. We've got plenty more coming through this year and next year. Cheers again. Bye bye.